It'll tell you it's being recorded.
Run! Hide!
All right. Okay. So you guys ready?
Yes, sir.
My hair look okay? In five, four, three, two. It's another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
And here we are again in our weekly podcast. I don't remember what episode it is, but it's good to have you here with us, Steve. We have a guest which we will get to in just a moment. Steve, we got a new product. Very quickly, remind everybody about the new product we have before we actually do our podcast.
We have a new product that will allow churches to be on the Amazon Alexa device. So there's, what are the numbers? 33%? Oh, I can't remember.
Yeah,
I was going to go with is it 33% of every household has one now? Or I thought it was higher than that.
It's growing, yeah.
Yeah. Many millions. I can't remember. I should have these stats. Anyway, this will allow the churches to have their message every day on the Amazon Alexa devices. It's called My Church Daily.
So people, when we're done here, go to mychurchdaily.com, look it up. We have a free trial. And we do streaming video. We do a bunch of different things. We've been serving churches for 20 years. In case you're new to our podcast, we've been doing podcasts for a long time, too. Before there was actually podcasts, we were doing podcasts. So just wanted to let you know. That means we're really old. So our guest today is a very young man who was recently named Church Production Hero of the Month. He's on staff at a church in Pensacola, Florida called Momentum Church, and his name is Connor Mays. Connor, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
We're doing well. Steve's had some minor issues. His car doesn't run right, and his computer blew up.
Yeah, well, it hadn't blown up.
Only one of those things you need.
Yeah. The car, right?
Yeah.
You got to get somewhere. You don't necessarily have to have a computer, I guess.
Well,
I actually got it right here.
Oh, you got it's a
Noticed
MacBook.
This morning that it is putting on weight, and
I think it's upside down.
This is the angle you need to see here.
It's swelling.
It's hard to tell, but the lid would not close all the way, and I noticed it's getting fat in the middle. So I think it's
kind of like me.
It's got a battery that is swelling inside and going to catch on fire and explode.
So do you leave that thing plugged in overnight?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, that's a problem. Okay. All right. You can pay me later.
Is that the issue?
Yeah, you can thank me later. Okay, so, we're sorry you're having problems, Steve, but it's better than your car blowing up. So I'm sure life will be okay for you. But we want to talk to Connor today because, Connor, I thought it was interesting. You're a pretty young guy, Connor. How old are you?
I'm 19.
You're 19, and you are on staff, as I mentioned earlier, Momentum Church. You are with the AVL team, so that's audio, video, lighting, right? That's what that means.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. And how's my lighting right now?
Pretty good.
Okay, good. Thanks. All right. So, look, first of all, tell us real quickly about Momentum Church. What is Momentum Church? It's out of Pensacola, Florida, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
And how large is it? And do you guys have campuses, or what do you guys do?
Mm-hmm. So we are a multi-campus church here in Pensacola, Florida. We average about, I'd say 500 to 600 people per weekend at our Gulf Breeze campus, and then about 200 at our Pensacola campus. Mm-hmm. And we live stream to YouTube and Facebook from our Pensacola location.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Steve, feel free to ask questions. Usually I let Steve do all the heavy lifting here. So I just want to get a little
stuff, right?
Yeah.
So you got a unique story that I was reading, in that you started out as a volunteer and tried a bunch of different areas that didn't work. Tell us about that.
So when I lived in Ocala, Florida, my mom wanted my brother and I to start serving. And I was, I think, about 15 at the time. So she sort of put us in the kids environment and told us to serve there. But me not wanting to serve with kids, I sort of wandered upstairs and that's where their tech booth was. So their production director there is like, "Hey, you want to learn how to do lights?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And so started learning lights using a Jan's Vista board, and sort of learning how to program things like that.
So that was more up your alley, I take it?
Yeah.
You're pretty fascinated with, I can see, I mean, I was a wander into a church, definitely wouldn't want to end up in the kids area. My wife would be drawn to it, but I'd be going for the flashing lights and the cool tech, but just like you. And my wife would be running from the flashing lights and the cool tech. So
is that something that came natural for you? I mean, some people it's overwhelming, you know, and but do you feel when you saw all that stuff, you're like, yeah, I want to do this, or was it like, oh no, I don't know, should I do this? What's going to happen? What was your response? How was your reaction?
I think it was a little bit of both. I'm quick at learning, and I like to be challenged. So learning new things is a lot of fun to me, and the bigger project that I'm entrusted with, the more I like to do bigger projects than other people might think I'm capable of, so that I can prove to them that I can do a lot more than they think I can.
I volunteer at my church and back in the AV room where the video stuff is, and we get other volunteers that I'll train, and it's interesting to see how the different attitudes of the different people. So some will come in and they'll want to watch and not touch anything so that they're, you know, I might break something, you know, if I adjust this, it might break something. And others, we don't have too many of these that jump in and they don't know what they're doing, but they're flipping knobs and doing things like that. It's usually, you know, we get people in between, but it sounds like you're the guy that wants to learn how things work and then make it happen.
Yep.
What kind of a skill set? So you started to do this just what, 2 or 3 years ago now? I mean, you're 19 now. They put you on staff. I mean, what kind of skill set do you think people need to be able to do what you're doing? Is it something that's easily learnable? Is that a word? Or do you just really have to have a talent? Do you have to have an ear? Do you have to have an eye for lighting?
I think for audio, it definitely helps to have like an ear for what sounds good. But for lighting, I wouldn't consider myself like super idea creating person. I like to look at other people's designs and draw from them. But as to what someone might need to possess, definitely a hardworking attitude, because that's what got me here most of the time, was just working hard, being willing to do anything that someone asked me to do, and then also a willing to learn and good ability to focus.
So you mentioned that you get your inspiration from other places. Are there, I assume that's both within other churches and outside the church. What are some really good resources or inspirations that you've learned from or that you're inspired by?
Yeah. So I like watching what Passion Church and Elevation Church are doing, like their conferences, their concerts, things like that. Seeing how they do something in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium and seeing how I can do that in like a high school where we have an hour to load in and load out. And then also like livedesign.com, they post concert stage plots and lighting plots and things like that. And I like to go back and look to see what they designed and how their original thought, how they executed their original idea, and things like that. So
you're talking about, I mean, you can look at it from how they did lighting. Does the stage design fit into that too? And do you have influence over that? Is that something you do as well?
Yeah, so my title here at Momentum is visual director. So I oversee lighting, video, and set designs. So anything that falls under those three things, I oversee and sort of give the green stamp on. Um, so stage design, how the stage is laid out, how things are put on the stage, does fall under my purview.
So you're 19 years old. Let me jump in here and I'll interrupt Steve.
Yeah.
If you weren't doing this, do you think you'd still be going to church somewhere? And if so, what kind of a church would it be? I mean, obviously, Momentum Church here in Pensacola, where you're at, is very contemporary. I would say sounds like it's pretty cutting edge. Or you're moving that way. But what if you weren't in a church like Momentum? Would you still go to church? What's your thoughts on that?
If it wasn't in a church like Momentum, well, I think it would depend on sort of what I'm wanting to do with my life, because I don't really want to go to college because I learn more doing my job than I would going to school for my job.
Okay.
But I would probably find a church that's similar to Momentum, like Passion or Elevation, depending on where I was going to college, and then seeing sort of how I fit into that overall aspect of that church.
Do you think that's why young people your age, there's stats out there that say that, what is your generation? What's it called? I always get mixed up. But what are you?
I think I'm in Gen Z.
All right, Gen Z. My son's 22. But so do you think that that's why more Generation Z, and some of the other ones are not attending church as much because the church that they're seeing out there is not really appealing to them visually? They're not relevant. I mean, I'm throwing some stuff out here. Just let me know your thoughts on that. What do you think?
So I think something that's happened with church, like over the past 30 or 40 years, is they tend to find one thing that works for them and then only ever do that, and not do pyro on a Sunday morning because it helps tell the story of the message, or use haze and moving lights, things like that, that the quote unquote old crowd of church might think that that's from the devil, or something like that. But for me, if I can do something that brings my friends in that otherwise wouldn't go to church, then to me, it's far more important to have one friend's lives changed than to have to listen to critics or whatever like that, that think once you find one way to do it, then that's the only way you can ever do it.
It's a good answer.
I remember, well, anyway, I won't go there. Maybe I'll go there later. It's like,
go ahead, go there, go.
I was going to tell my little codger story. I was like, we're going to a church and they were saying, one of the pastor's kids was like, we need to have drums at church. I'm like, drums? They're not going to have drums at church. And then like a year or two later, we're having drums at church. So this was a long time ago. So anyway, you talk about, my radar went off again when you said pyrotechnics. I'm like, you're not going to do pyrotechnics at church. And I go, well, I guess they should be doing pyrotechnics at church.
Yeah. I mean, if you go back and watch Passion 2020, they had an awesome fireworks display right at midnight to ring in the new decade. It was really cool.
I was thinking pyro, they
had
worship
pyro
leader
on the
jumps
stage
off
too.
off the drum kit onto the stage, and pyros shoot off. Anyway, maybe we'll see it. So I was going to ask about, you talk about just stage design and lighting, and most churches, the average church size out there is still under 100, right? So their budgets are really small. but I've seen where you can really do some good things without a big budget. Do you have any ideas you could share with some of the people out there that really to improve your lighting, improve your stage presence, your stage design without a lot of money?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is figure out what your church culture is and like what the vision of your leaders are. Because like here at Momentum, we have a very future driven and pastor who brings great vision. And so we want to be able to support that with lighting, set design, stage design, things like that. But if you're a more contemporary church and you're wanting to build to the level that we have or we are at, you want to start in small incremental changes that are, one, not too over the top, and two, are sustainable. Because it's great to do something really cool, but if you're the only person who knows how to do it, and you can do it for like 3 months, but then you never want to even set foot in a church again, then it's not worth it compared to starting with like bringing in a couple of RGB slim pars and adding color to the stage during worship, and then slowly moving up to moving lights and then haze and then things like that, in a sustainable way where you're training people as you're doing it, versus going 0 to 1,000 and then you burn yourself out and you can't do anything anymore.
So when you say haze, is that like fog machine? Is that
so? Haze and fog are two different atmospheric effects. If you've ever played laser tag, most of the time there's like a little haze in the room where you can sort of see lights hanging in the air. So that's what haze does. It allows you to see the beam of light. Okay. So if you have a spotlight, you can see the beam of the light or wash. It helps to color the room. Versus fog, which is just a thick smoke that you see in sort of like house fire or
there's haze
like a haunted.
I take it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. What's the cost of a haze machine? Do you
know? There's many costs. There's many varying costs of it. So you can get like a cheap, probably $200 hazer, or all the way up to like $5,000 or $6,000. And then there's water-based haze and oil-based haze, and they each have their own unique characteristics. So there's a lot that can go into deciding to get a hazer.
Okay, that's new to me. I'm not, but you see it when you watch a music awards show or something like that. You're seeing, you don't really think about it until you start mentioning it. Yeah, you can see the lights because there's a haze on the stage, so you can, and it's not really strong, but it really helps bring out the whole lighting effect. And yeah, before I started talking with you, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just a bunch of people smoking in the room,
That can work. That's
funny. Yeah. We're talking with Connor Mays here, who is on staff at Momentum Church. AVL, I don't want to say ALV, but it's AVL is your team, audio, video, lighting. What do you think is, what's the future for Connor Mays? What do you see in your future?
I'd love to eventually intern at Elevation or Passion, and spend probably 6 months to a year with either one of those and learn from their filming team, their production team, their creative team, and figuring out or learning their processes, how they do pre-production, production, and post-production of their videos, how they design new sets, how they tell a story from when a guest walks in the front door all the way to when they're in the auditorium, and making sure every step in between lines up and helps to tell the story. And then bringing all of that, everything that I learned back here to Momentum to help us get better.
So what would you advise other churches to do to encourage other young people to get involved with their AV team or their kids area or whatever it may be?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the AV team, though, I would think. What's things the church can do, or what have you seen that others are doing that's been turning off to, or is a turnoff for the kids?
Well, I think one thing is sometimes younger kids or like teenagers aren't given enough responsibility, or aren't trusted with big enough projects. So for me, I started serving in like September of 2018, and then the next January in 2019, I helped program and run our night of worship, which is like our big church get together where we celebrate all God did in the past year and what He's going to do in the year coming forward, and then sort of bringing it back to Jesus. And so I'd only been serving for about 4 or 5 months when I was asked to help with that. And so I was about 17 at that time. So I was given a very large responsibility, but I was trusted with it and I was allowed to succeed at it.
That's great. So I guess the advice is to do the same within your church, is bring these kids on and give them some responsibility and set them loose and let them see what they can do. Especially the whole AV area is really youth oriented, you know? I mean, it's there's a skill set that people like yourself acquire and have a lot of times just by the nature of, it's just popular to do. I mean, video editing, where was that, 20 years ago? So most people know, oh yeah, I know how to edit a video and I can edit videos. So I think that a lot of the time the church doesn't recognize that there's a skill base there that is going untapped.
Sounds like you've got some really good leadership at your church that have kind of trusted you and given you permission. How is that? Speak a little bit about the leadership team at your church. I mean, they seem like they've really encouraged you and released you to do some of those things, and they've taken a risk with you and probably with some other people. Speak to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so our leadership here is great. Our pastor gives us a great and clear vision for what he wants a message series to look like or an event to look like. And then he gives us the creative freedom to execute that in how we interpret his vision. And then he can speak into it if he wants to. But more often than not, he's like, great idea, run with it, knock it out of the park. It's going to be great. And then there are other times where, say, he wanted to do a series about friendships, but the Holy Spirit is telling him, actually, I think you should do one about parenting, because in, say, the summer or home from school, and parents teach the parents how they can still be interactive with their kids when their kids are home all day by themselves most of the time, and sort of helping to build a good family. So might change from a series on friendship to a series on parenting in a week, and we get the opportunity to make new graphics, maybe do videos for it, update set designs, things like that. So we get the opportunity to be flexible depending on where the Holy Spirit is leading our pastor.
That's really good. That's awesome. Well, we're just about out of time here. Connor Mays, a leader at his church, Momentum Church. I can't wait to see what God does in your life 10 years from now. I'm excited for you. And I started ministry at a very young age too. And it's just been a good, it's been a good experience. And I'm excited for you. And I'm happy for the things that you mentioned. We were asking you questions from different spectrums here. Steve and I kind of think a little different. So we had you all over the map here. But I really do appreciate you spending some time. And quite frankly, I feel really old now talking to you because you're 19 and I'm 79. So
all good.
I'm not 79, but I'm getting there. So all right. So Connor Mays, how do if somebody has a question for you, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So my email is connor@momentumchurch.org. You can send me an email, ask me any questions you have, and then my phone number.
I don't give your phone number, but that's fine.
No.
And they can always call Momentum Church too if they
they can always call us.
They can Google that.
Yep.
Do you play video games?
Always.
Yeah.
Whenever I get a chance.
What's your favorite video game? Yeah, it is Connor with 2 N's. Connor. Sorry, we're stepping on each other. What's your favorite video game?
So right now I'm enjoying MLB The Show 21. Playing the Road to the Show on that.
Oh, okay, interesting. Do you ever play Minecraft?
I have.
Yeah,
yes,
you like it?
I used to play it a lot.
Yeah, my son
plays
plays
Rocket League.
I've played Rocket League occasionally. It's one of those playing with your friends is the best part.
Yeah. Well, I have kids that are into. He's a promoter for Rocket League, so he sponsors a bunch of top national level people. So
nice.
Fear RL, check it out.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll do that. We'll give him a all right, Connor. So we're out of time. We do appreciate you spending some time with us, and you're 19 years old, and you can't vote. I guess you can vote when you're 19, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you can vote. So all right, good. So look, again, thank you, Connor. Thank you for this time. We do appreciate it. And I think we're going to have one of your leaders maybe on here eventually. What's his name? Is it Joe? I can't remember his name.
Joe Cross. Yes, sir.
Okay. He wrote a book, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
All right. Well, I'm waiting to get it, and we'll have him on too, and because it sounds like he's got some great things to say. All right. Look, this has been the Church Solutions Podcast, and if you missed all that contact information, you can always back up the tape or the video, but you can always reach us, support@streamingchurch.tv. If you have a question for Connor Mays or somehow or another you want to get a hold of him, just email us. And check out our podcast anytime. You can subscribe to it anywhere you get your podcast. You can just do a search for Church Solutions Podcast. And Steve and I will be there, and some of our exciting guests. So again, Connor, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Right. And Steve, thank you for your input today. As always, it's very good.
Glad to be here.
All right. And I'm Phil Thompson. And thank you, folks, for spending some time with us. If we can help you in any way, again, reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you. So have a great day. Take care of yourselves. We'll catch you again next time on another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast.